Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, everyone. If you're in the States, it's morning. In the UK, it's afternoon. Or in Asia, it's very late, maybe too early. Nice to see everyone here. Hi, Richard. Um, LFC Liverpool. Hi, Tony. I have had a pretty good Sunday. I've had a little bit of a cold, but I did go and play golf this morning. It's getting a lot colder here, and it's very wet now. The course is really soggy, but you need to get out there and exercise, and that's what I do for exercise, golf. So yeah, I took some Lemsips. Don't know if you have that in the States. And yeah, I played all right. Didn't play my best, but had a good round of golf. Hi, Pad. Hi, No. Nice to see you all here. I decided to do this live stream a little earlier today. Gets darker earlier, so it's nice to do it during the day when there's some sunlight. Got Patty Irish from LA. It's quite early in LA. Nice to see you here. Isabella from Austria. Hi, Isabella. Sierra. Hi, Sierra. Okay, the title of my live stream is about the globalists' endgame for the world economy. And why am I touching upon that? Well, I think this climate change agenda, this extinction rebellion, it's all part of this end game as well. And I think in the markets as well, this endless pumping of credit and debt into the system, this evisceration of interest rates is going to make sure that a lot of wealth is transferred from the general public to the top, to the globalists. And why is that? Well, because I think a lot of older people, for example, people who have saved all their lives, who are retiring, they're getting no income on their savings. They're going to have to consume their savings, liquidate their savings, and who's going to be buying all that? Well, it's the globalists. They're also making sure that young people don't get ahead as well. It's very hard for young people to find proper jobs. In Europe, for example, in Italy, there's still 30% unemployment. So I think the climate change thing, I really recommend people Google the name George Hunt. So this is George Hunt, and also Unsaid. And George Hunt talks about who's behind this climate change agenda, and basically how it's to try to deindustrialize the West, to try to bring also the East up to the same level of the West, and that's what they're trying to do. Is Donald Trump really against these people? It seems like he is, with all the comments he makes, with all his rhetoric. But one thing that makes me concerned is that Donald Trump is going right along with this explosion of debt. Before he was elected, he did say that we had the mother of all bubbles, right? A big, fat, ugly bubble when the Dow was at 17,000. And here we are right now, 10,000 points higher. And he thinks we should be a lot higher. He said interest rates were too low. So I'm not too sure about him. I look at the money and the debt, and I think they're turning the thermostat, and a lot of frogs are starting to get boiled, so to speak. So that's my view. I've noticed lately there's a lot of how can I say, protests, riots springing up everywhere around the world. We started almost a year ago with the yellow vests in France, and they're still at it. We've got now protests in Barcelona. I saw we've got huge protests and emergency laws in Chile. We've got Hong Kong. I think we might get protests here in the UK. This Brexit fiasco just keeps going and going. I think they're dividing people as well. That's the other strategy they do, the divide and rule. So what's the strategy to try to avoid this? Well, I think it's to just try to look after yourself, try to maybe make people aware of what's going on and not fall into their game, right? And find options for your life, and try to live differently than what we're told by the mainstream, right? By the peer pressure. So that's my view today. Of course, I'll take people's questions. I'm going to have a look here. So we've got 115 people already. The repo's going mad. That's right, Isabella. I think there's a lot more wrong with the banking system and the credit market than they let us know. Aside from continuing to help the repo, the Federal Reserve is now doing QE as well. We've got James Samuels from South Carolina. Nice to see you. Big Mike from New Jersey. Doug Stauffer from Arizona. Ellen Blasey from New York, the Catskills. Kay Brown from Tennessee. Jane Reynolds from wet France. Yeah, it's been fairly wet here as well. Actually, it hasn't rained today, so but it rained a lot in the past week. I'm just trying to see everyone who's here. So try to get as many questions as possible. Jake Jones from Hong Kong. Yeah, things seem to be heating up in Hong Kong as well. But not just Hong Kong, it seems to be all over the place. So yeah, my view is that what the end game is that these powers that be, what they're trying to do, hopefully they won't be as successful as they probably want to be, is to extract the wealth from the general public, to have use the climate thing as an excuse to have like very centralized or what they call world government. I think the UN is part of that. Of course, the UN headquarters in New York, the land that that headquarters was built on was donated by the Rockefellers to that institution. We also, I think the first general secretary of the UN as well was Alger Hiss, who was later found to be a communist spy, right? So there's all these things that are going on. And yeah, there's talk that the UN could run out of money anytime. So that would be a good thing, I think, the UN running out of money. Because the UN is the instrument for the globalists, because the UN is the closest thing you have to like a world government, right? Dimitri's from Greece. Let's Fix It from Salzburg. Niels Jensen or Jensen from Denmark. Elvira from Kent. Ark Omen, central banking is driving force for Keynesian socialistic, fascistic. Yeah, it is. It's all about central planning. Let's hope that when the system comes down, that people won't buy into actually keeping this system. But it's hard to tell. You can be your own. I don't even like to mention the term be your own central banker. It doesn't sound right, but be your own banker. Stay outside their financial system. Don't lend money to the bankers, because that's what you do when you put money in the bank, right? Isabella says Austrians are deeply sleeping. I think people everywhere, there's very few people that are awake to what's going on. But I think you don't need everyone to be awake for things to change. Pad says the end game for the world to be ruled from Israel. Maybe, or from the UN. Maybe they'll move the UN to Israel. I don't know. But As we've seen, he who controls the money supply doesn't care who makes the rules, right? So it could be it could be being run from Basel, Switzerland, because that's where the BIS is. Uh, DigiDave, Bank of England are cutting loans given out to companies next. The industrial, agricultural, and building industries will be hit hard. I didn't know that the Bank of England lent directly to companies, so I'm not sure about that. I think the other thing about this whole Brexit fiasco is that not all the uncertainty that we have, that doesn't help either the economy. Jake Jones says, I'd hate to have all my currency stored at the Bank of China right now. Uh, they've been smashed by rioters. Actually, they have uh, Bank of China is here in London, and a few years ago, I opened an account with Bank of China. I still have that account, but I don't have too much money in the Bank of China. It's not the Chinese central bank; it's a commercial bank, of course. Daniel Kent says, buy XRP, gold, silver, XRP. That's a Ripple, of course. Yeah, cryptocurrencies, I think, have a future. Cryptocurrencies, I think, are better than fiat money, of course. But you just have to pick the right one. You have to do your homework. You have to make sure you keep it safe in your private wallet. Don't leave it with exchanges. Yeah, world socialism, finance and economics. I agree with that. I mean, but my hope is that people realize that, especially young people, that socialism doesn't work. And it doesn't work. And you're seeing that in Southern Europe and Italy, here in the UK. Uh, we need economic freedom. In Italy, for example, I think youth unemployment is 30%. I saw a video from on YouTube from Rio Vision. I think they were in Italy, and these two guys were talking about. One of them was they're both English, but one lives in Italy, and he was saying it's such a beautiful country. The people are well educated, but there's so much red tape and bureaucracy. That's what we need. We need to cut the size of government. People need to realize that we don't need government to run our lives. That's the whole problem, and I hope. Things are not sustainable. I don't think socialism is sustainable. It always fails. Am I trying to say that things are really bad, that things are going to get worse? Maybe, but I think humans are adaptable, and things always will move forward and get better. You just need to find a way around things. You need to think differently. You need to do what you think is right and not buy into all the propaganda, I think. Mad DY Endgame Nuremberg Trial 2.0. I'm not too sure about that. We've been hearing about that for the last 3 years, and we don't see anyone being punished from high up. I wouldn't hold my breath for a Nuremberg 2.0. Yeah, I saw the article, Peter, I think on Zero Hedge about them lying. I think it was by Peak Prosperity. I forgot his name, the guy. Yeah, they're lying. They're saying, "Oh, don't call it QE. Everything's fine, even though we're doing 60 billion a month and we're going to do another 145 billion in repo. Oh, everything's fine, right?" Well, because they want to keep the frogs in the boiling water, right? But pretty soon, if you don't get out, you're going to be boiled to death. No, yeah, AU and AG, I agree. Um, lead, right? Rumpelstiltskin PB, that's lead. Yeah, Arc Omen 1, yeah, with, I mean, yeah, so many people. I think a lot of people don't realize that you can have no central bank, right? I guess here in England, people have been with the central bank for over 300 years, so they think it's normal, but it's not. I think it would be the greatest thing to happen to the world if central banks actually went out of business. I'd love to see that. Frank Hyman or Heyman, what is the opinion on right? What is the right allocation today? Gold, bonds, equities, cash. Uh, well, in terms of cash, I guess by cash you mean loans to banks, because that's what cash is nowadays. If you keep cash in the bank, that's an unsecured loan. So I try to keep as little as possible. I guess you could keep some physical cash with you, but I personally prefer having precious metals right now. I know they're not investments, they're insurance, but I think in bonds and stocks are all overvalued. So I want to wait for the day when things correct, and maybe I might buy bonds and stocks, but I want a bond that's going to yield 6-7%, fairly safe bond, not something that's yielding less than 2 or negative. So that's my view on allocation. Gold and silver, cryptocurrencies, that's what I have. And it all depends on which one you prefer. Christina, thank you for the super chat donation, Christina. Yeah, Jonathan Raymond, Epstein and friends may lead to Nuremberg 2.0. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that. I do have a copy of his little black book, and there's tons of people there, very high up people in that list. Does that mean they're all like guilty of something? No, but let's hope something's done about it. But I recommend this YouTube channel here. He does a lot of work and research about Epstein or Epstein. Sean Atwood, very good YouTube channel. Sean Atwood. He's covering the Epstein or Epstein situation very closely. Yeah, John the Glass, I agree with you. Gold is honest money, disliked by dishonest men. That's right. It's not perfect, of course. It fluctuates the ratio of gold to other commodities, but historically, gold and silver have been very stable stores of value, and they're easy to carry. Yeah, they've been money. Susan Chapel, do you think we're close to a correction? I guess you mean in the stock market. The thing I've been noticing about the stock market that if you look at the last almost 2 years now, we're kind of formed a huge top. And the other thing about the stock market, the Dow was at like 800 in 1980, and the national debt was just under $1 trillion. And the Dow's pretty much followed the national debt, right? Because we're at 23 trillion national debt, and the Dow is now 26,000, 27,000. But I've noticed the last couple of years with all the debt going up by like 2 trillion, the Dow doesn't seem to have the strength to keep going up. So yeah, I think there will be a correction. When? I don't know. Peter Wilson, thank you for the super chat donation. Oh, you're welcome. Sunday is a good day for the live stream. That's what I've been doing in the past. I'm a little earlier today, and you're welcome. I don't mind doing this, of course. Yeah, Jake Jones, I agree with you um, about precious metals. They're all when people talk about the dollar being strong or the dollar being weak, the euro being strong. I think it's all distraction. Uh, if you look since the 1968, 1971, uh, gold is all the fiat currencies have gone down versus gold, and they're going to keep doing that. The central bankers have no option but to keep printing. Liverpool Football Club or Film Club, sorry. uh, your thoughts on Kinesis, gold and silver? No, yeah, I prefer, as I said, precious physical. Uh, what happened to Glint was a wake up call, in my opinion. I think the money at Glint is safe, but I'd rather hold my precious metals. So I don't know much about Kinesis. I'm not sure how you get a yield on your gold if they lend you gold or silver. I prefer having it in my possession or stored safely. So yeah, I can't talk more about Kinesis, Tony. I know that is it Andrew Maguire is involved in that. Um, it could be a good thing, but yeah, I think there's a lot of products out there like uh, they call them these payments cards, fintech, right? Very good. For example, there's some cards you go abroad and the exchange rate is really good and you can spend it there and stuff. Yeah, that's fine for transactions and going abroad, but to save your money, your wealth, I think uh, stay tangible goods, I think. Yeah, Ehud Barak is a friend of Jeff Epstein. I saw that. Jason Johnson. No, I haven't written any books. No, even though I've been, people, my viewers in the past have said you should write one. Maybe I should. I've never written a book, but you got to start it, right? Uh, Yeah, it's a shame, Susan, about Clint. We'll have to see what happens. I think the money will be there and the gold, but it's almost a month now. It's the uncertainty that doesn't help. Yeah, Jane Reynolds, I do have a Revolut card, and I use that in Italy. It's quite good. Timmy Chonga, hi Timmy Chonga, nice to see you. Yeah, we need some thumbs up. And now we got 66. Hi Archie Lord. Who the hell are you? Well, who the hell are you, Archie? Uh, Joe Johnson, what's your favorite gold coin in your collection? Yeah, I do have Buffaloes from '07, '08. Um, I mean, most of my coins are sovereigns because that's bullion. I do have some numismatic coins. One that I have that I like is the 1877 Carson City Double Eagle. It's got a little bit of a premium to the bullion price, but the better one to have is the $10 1877 Eagle, Carson City. That's like worth quite a bit. It's worth more than the $20 because it's quite rare. I also have some old silver. I have a silver dollar or a half dollar from like 1834, which is numismatic as well. Tom Taylor, do you have 2009 UHR? What's the UHR? I'm not sure what that is. Hi, Jeff. Good morning, Tom Taylor. Ultra high relief. No, I don't have the ultra high relief. I think I've only got like '07 and '08 buffaloes. The only problem about with the buffaloes is that they're like 999, so you have to be very careful with them. Uh, they're not really coins for circulation like the old double eagles, which are 90% gold and 10% copper. So you got to keep them nice and protected. Timmy Chonga, thoughts on Brexit? Just a mess, really. I think whatever we get, we're not really going to get what people wanted. You know, the 17.4 million who voted to leave. We're not going to get that unless Boris Johnson can pull a rabbit out of the hat and leave without a deal. I think it's going to be Brexit in name only. And I think it's creating a lot of animosity. I think we could start seeing protests like we're seeing in France, Spain, Chile, Hong Kong, in the UK. So we'll have to wait and see. Tim Dog from the great state of Oregon. Hi, Tim Dog. Nice to see you. Bullion versus numismatics. I prefer bullion. As if you're gonna save in gold, you have to think of bullion. Numismatic is completely different. You really need to do your homework because it's a difference. And some people buy numismatics in the States because in '33, when they confiscated the gold in the US, numismatics were exempt from confiscation. So some Americans like having numismatics just in case they confiscate gold again. So yeah, but here in the UK, gold has never been confiscated. Numismatic is just for fun, and that's how I've done it. But I prefer bullion as an avenue or instrument for investment. Silver Eagle. No, I don't have a 99 Silver Eagle. I do have Silver Eagles, but I'm not sure what their classification is. Do you think globalists can engineer arrest and use for their interest? A reset. Yeah, I think they can certainly do that. They've been in charge for a long time, very powerful. I think it's very difficult to fight these people. That's why you need to know what they're doing so you can protect yourself. I don't think we can beat them. The only way to beat them is if they beat themselves. SAC Media, you think markets will tank 1st of November? Well, I've seen some videos about some kind of event on the 3rd of November, on the Sunday. But it's difficult to say when things are going to happen like that. I think Bo Pony likes to give dates, but I've tried to stay away from giving dates. Gregory, yeah, I think Gregory KH, yeah, the Chinese will have a lot more influence in the price of gold in the future. They hold a lot of gold. Why is Queen Elizabeth on almost every gold piece? Well, here in the UK, she's the monarch, so that's the coin of the realm. In Canada as well, in Australia, yeah. So, but it doesn't stop me from accumulating those coins. Yeah, she's on the coin, but it's still gold. Pablo Pina, do you give more credit to Trump considering Captain the icebreaker into the globalist? I'm not sure about Trump, really, what Trump is, really. A lot of things he says make sense. I personally think it's just theater, Trump and the globalists. He's controlled opposition. Yeah, that's what I think. Hopefully, and maybe maybe the globalists know that things are going to get really bad, and they need Trump to clean things up. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be bad for the general public. Maybe the globalists are realizing they need to give something back to the public. I don't know. Trump is an enigma to me. What's more liquid, coin or bullion? Do you mean numismatic coin or bullion? Bullion is more liquid than numismatic. Numismatic is always more difficult to find the right price. Yeah, silent critic is interesting, isn't he, Jeff Brown? He's very interesting. Yes, MJQ, hard assets. MJQ from California, I agree. And little debt. Try to have as little debt as possible. Don't do business with the bankers. David from Central Illinois, what is your exit plan? Do you think it still look precious metals exit plan? Well, hopefully I will not have to exit my precious metals, and I'll be able to leave it for my daughter. But if there was a total implosion of the system, maybe buy property in Italy or somewhere like that. I'm in England, but I was talking to someone at the golf club today. He's Italian, but English Italian, and he's from Sicily, and he was telling me the hometown where his parents are from, really nice place in Sicily. You can get real bargains there for property, like under 20,000 euros, and they're not small. So something like that. Yeah, buy assets that, hard assets. The Queen owns half the world, says Jake Jones. Yeah, I mean, she's the Queen of Canada, isn't she? Queen of Australia. But some people think that there's also the black nobility, that they're powerful. The Vatican and the families behind the Vatican, they keep very much low key, those families. So who knows? Pabar, my opinion on HSBC. I've made some videos where I've talked about HSBC in the past week. Yeah, they are. If you Google John Cruz whistleblower, that's his name here, John Cruz. They're involved in some shady activities, HSBC, but they've been doing this kind of shady activity for 200 years. They were the bank for the probably the East India Company, the people who flooded China with opium, right? People behind the opium war. They're very powerful, HSBC, and they were 2012. The Department of Justice, instead of prosecuting them criminally for money laundering for drug cartel, they only fined them 1.9 billion. So yeah, that's HSBC. I wouldn't. Well, I try to keep as little money as possible with my bank. My bank is NatWest. Prince Charles went to visit the Vatican recently. Yeah. MMAC. Well, LIBOR, MMAC. Back in the 60s, all the dollars that were well, I'll have to start with World War II. After World War II ended, there was the Marshall Plan, and the U.S. had all the gold, right? So a lot of loans were given to Europe, and those dollars that were in Europe were traded in London, and they're still in London, around in London. It's called the London Interbank Offered Rate. So these are the euro dollars. There's nothing to do with the euro, but they're called euro dollars. And basically, it's kind of the Fed funds, but for international banking in London. And what happened in 07, 08 is that the banks lost confidence in each other. So the rates spiked, just like the repo rate spiked recently in the States. So the Bank of England, they were involved, and they told the banks to basically rig the rate, because basically told them just pretend that the rate is 1 instead of 10 to give the wrong signal to the markets, right? That's how it was rigged, LIBOR. And the LIBOR rate is fixed every day. The dealers call each other and say, where are you, 3-month LIBOR? And they say 3.5%. So that's how they rigged it. They just lied about the rate. And there's no money changing hands, but they're basically lying about the rate. That's how they rigged it. And it's not a very transparent market. It's an over-the-counter market, and that's how they were able to do it. Hope that explains it. Yeah, Silver Billy on the couch. Billy, say hi to everyone. There he is. Rumpelstiltskin, HSBC is not a Chinese bank. It's a British bank. I know the name sounds like Chinese, but it's really Scottish, I would say, actually, to be exact. Matthew M., do you have any tips for the end of central banking system for someone straight out of college? Actually, it's a good thing for you, straight out of college. If the central banking system ends, just try to learn about precious metals, learn about the history of money. Read Murray Rothbard's book. It's called What Has Government Done to Our Money? Murray Rothbard. Yeah, the other thing I think, if there is the end of the central banking system, and I think we are in the bubble, of course, in finance, in credit, financialization, I think things are going to move towards more real things. So maybe try to avoid finance, but it's up to you, really. I don't really know your background. But learn about money. If anything, learn about money before you do anything. Yeah, 1 ounce, 1 unit of account, or a gram. Don't forget that the troy ounce is 31.10 grams. The normal ounce is 28 grams. Butchie Harding explained to me like a child. Yeah, that's right, Lord Humongous. According to the Constitution, the dollar is 371.25 grains of fine silver. British sovereign, the gold coin. I haven't spoken about it, but yeah, I that's the best gold coin to have, in my opinion, if you're UK domiciled, because it's legal tender and there's no capital gains tax on it. Also, the half sovereign. Yeah, we got quite a few people here. Maybe not as many as usual because I'm doing it earlier today, but Yeah, Billy snores a lot. Sorry about that. Britannia as well. Any British coin that has the Queen's face on it or other monarch's face is legal tender, so there's no capital gains. Krugerrand, on the other hand, if you buy Krugerrands and the price of gold goes up a lot and you sell it, you're liable for capital gains tax. I think the other interesting thing about sovereigns in the States, in the 60s, when Americans were banned from buying gold, monetary gold, the sovereign was exempt. So there's a story about the central banker, John Exter. He was a gold bug and he bought sovereigns in the 60s. That was a way around it. But I bet you many people didn't know that at the time. Couch potatoes, Kennedy. Yeah, I can feel that couch potato. I can see there's trouble now in Chile as well, trouble in Spain and Barcelona, trouble in France, trouble in Hong Kong, and I think we're going to get trouble here in the UK as well. Yeah, the premium changes, Alan. There is VAT on silver here, on silver coins, 20%. I think that's what you mean. Riots in Lebanon. Well, that's not too unusual. Lebanon has always been a pretty unstable place. I would say Chile is quite interesting because Chile has been fairly stable for the last 30 years. Thank you, Mick. Thank you. Yeah, John the Glass. That's true. The men with the gold rules, the golden rule. I also believe in the other golden rule, which is you treat other people as you'd want them to treat you. I think that's also an important golden rule. Exuberant Witness. Hi, Exuberant Witness. Nice to see you here. Yeah, I think there is like the powers that be. They try to keep silver. You know, why don't they take the VAT out of silver in the UK? Well, probably because they don't want people protecting themselves against the inflation. And that's the other thing that we're being fooled about, that we don't have inflation. We have low inflation. And even people in alternative channels and media say that we have low inflation. And that's rubbish. The cost of living is rising. People in a lot of countries have to have more than one job to keep, how can I say, to live. Lou Hokazi, I follow your channel since the beginning. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I agree with you, Timmy Chonga. 10% here is probably the same. No, I don't know how many of those coins are made. Winter Wolf from Key Largo. Uh, identify the globalist by name. Well, I think if you, it's difficult to say exactly who's behind the globalists, but if you look at who's part of the Council on Foreign Relations in the U.S., who's part of Chatham House in the U.K., who's part of the central banking cabal. Yeah, those are the globalist people behind the UN, BIS. Those are the globalists, the big corporations. But who's really? It's very difficult to say who's really ultimately in charge. But I think there's some very powerful families that we don't even know about, especially in Europe. Yeah, you can talk about the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, and others, but I don't even think they're like the top dogs. So yeah, Pilgrim Society, that's the other one. That's very interesting as well. Pilgrim Society is basically the US UK establishment. They're part of it as well. Yeah, I think a lot of the royals and are part of this globalist agenda. How long can this repo liquidity go on for and start seeing effects? Well, they're trying to they're still pumping the Fed. They're still helping the repo market. The repo market isn't uh, really running smoothly anymore. And aside from all the money they put into the repo, which is about I think 140 billion, they've added 60 billion in QE. So it's more than just the QE that's a problem. Isabella, I don't think Soros is a big. I think Soros is just an agent of the big globalists. He comes across as he's in charge, but I actually think he's because I know that George Soros, when he started out his hedge fund business in the '60s, he was funded by SE Banken, which is the biggest probably the biggest bank in Sweden, which is owned by the Wallenberg family. That's another globalist family. I saw a few years ago Wallenberg. He was at the Bilderberg meeting. The Wallenbergs own almost the whole of Sweden. So I think Soros, he's in the public realm, but I don't think he's the top dog. Tom Manley, I've heard about that family, Pazur family. I think there's a lot of other families in Europe that people haven't heard about that are very powerful, like in Italy and France and Germany. James Samuels, I do see a time where you can't buy gold with paper money. Yes, I do. When the paper money gets really destroyed, you'll be able to exchange things for gold. You'll be able to barter it, but not with the paper money. If we start executing, then we'll get to the right family. Well, that's not. I don't think that's the right way to go about it, but sometimes it does feel like that should be done. Lagarde, yeah, she's a globalist, but again, she's just like. I recommend people read this book here. I haven't finished because it's just come out. It came out on September 11th. The Trigger by David Icke. I think I've read almost 100 pages. He talks about the people behind the globalists. Yeah, Lagarde is a globalist, but she's just like a management, I would say. Yeah, Billy snoring again. Varja, Civil War. I think it's possible. Have you heard of the fourth turning? Yeah, I think we are in the period of the fourth turning. uh, and that happens every 80 years. You start with the Revolutionary War, 1870 or 1880. It ended, and then you add 80 years, you get 1861, 1781. It ended. Sorry. Then you add 80 years, you get 1861, the Civil War, and then you add another 80 years, you get 1941, the Civil War, and then you add another 80 years, you get 2021, right? So yeah, I'm not sure if it's going to be a civil war, but there will be a lot of mayhem, I think, and we're seeing the symptoms of that. All the division, not only in the U.S. but all over the world. Yeah, I've seen that Money Masters by Bill Still. That's an old one. Baz Sherry says, I followed you from the start. Very informative. Only for your channel, there would be none this side of the Atlantic. Thank you very much for all you do, Mario. Oh, you're welcome. Barry from Ireland. Ken Jurgensen has financial freedom in Norway, crypto. I have cryptocurrencies as well, Ken. But yeah, and I have a good amount of cryptocurrencies, but I prefer still precious metals. And I think cryptocurrencies, they're not for the faint-hearted. You need to sit through a lot of volatility, but I think there is still a lot of upside to cryptocurrencies. Lord Humongous, there's been a lot of Soviet propaganda in American schools since end of World War II. Yeah, I recommend Norman Dodd. He did an interview with G. Edward Griffin in the early 80s. Really good, great interview, Norman Dodd, and he talks about what Lord Humongous is talking about here, Soviet propaganda. I recommend really people watch that Norman Dodd with G. Edward Griffin was the guy who wrote The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is a book about the Federal Reserve. If you Google Norman Dodd, G. Edward Griffin, you'll find the interview. I really recommend that. Shane Lackey, 50 individual states. These United States, right, Shane? Yeah, Bill Cooper, Chuck. I've known about Bill Cooper. He predicted 9/11 a few months before it happened. I think he was killed, wasn't he, near his house in Arizona? Bill Cooper, William Cooper. Gert Sadik, why no hyperinflation with all these trillions created? Well, because they're keeping the trillions in the banking system. That's why the Federal Reserve offers interest on excess reserves to the banks so that they keep the money out of the economy. But not sure they'll be able to do that forever. Yeah, Lord Humongous got whacked in Arizona. That's right. Tommy Studley, the thing to think about precious metals is that you don't profit from precious metals because you only profit from it because if you think fiat money is better, right? The thing to do is to dollar cost average and hold it for the long term. It will protect you for the long term. It will keep its purchasing power. And it also, if you hold it, it's not going to be in the financial system. There's no counterparty risk. George Hawkins, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of numbers out there and backing 50% or 20%. I personally think a reset will be complete when the Dow and the gold are 1-to-1. So that's, I don't know at what price that would be. It could be at $1,000 gold and 1,000 Dow. And you might say, well, that would mean, gold would go down, but all in relative terms, right? Or it could be at $50,000 Dow, $50,000 gold. And why do I say that? Well, because I think the Dow is like a good benchmark for paper assets. And I think when you get 1-to-1, like we've gotten in the past, like in 1980 and I think 33 or 32. That's when the reset will be done, I think. Oliver LITECOIN, yeah, I think he's just he did work for the Rothschilds as a banker, NM Rothschild, Oliver LITECOIN. He's just there to create a lot of mayhem. That's what the globalists like. They like mayhem, right? I think it's David Icke who talks about problem, reaction, solution, right? That's what they want, the globalists, so that they can bring on their solutions. You have to have a real big problem in order to impose your solution. And if you don't have a big problem and you have stability, it's difficult to bring their solutions. So yeah, Oliver LITECOIN is just like a pawn. All right, I'll take a couple more questions or a few more questions, and then I'll call it a day. We're almost at an hour here. John, will banks become exchanges for converting gold to the new global currency? They could, but they won't be the same banks that are around now, in my opinion. I wouldn't trust them. Tungsten in our bars? Yeah, you have to be careful about that. That's been in the news for quite a few years. James Samuels, yeah, fiat currencies, it's the law of supply and demand. That's what it's all about. It's much easier to create the fiat out of thin air than it is to dig gold out of the ground. So yeah. Lord Humongous says all the Grand Canyon gold will save America. Yeah, he's been listening to Big Swear, right, Lord Humongous? John the Glass, you're welcome. Thank you, everyone. And do I trust the Royal Mint? Well, I trust, I trust the coins that they mint, but I wouldn't trust them to keep my coins stored with them. No, I wouldn't trust them. All right. I wish everyone a great rest of the weekend and a new week. If you're in Hong Kong, I guess it's quite late there. And thank you, everyone, for showing up for this live stream and participating. And I'll talk to you guys later. Take care. Bye.